Anytime you begin a communication, whether face-to-face, in writing, or over the phone, it's important to think about why you've opened that line of communication, what the goal of your interaction is, and how you're going to deliver your message. In this video, we'll watch 3 segments of a presentation created by MIT students. You'll analyze the strategy used to develop the message, and hear how and why the presenters chose this strategy. This video is part of the Communication video series. Successful professional communication begins with the ability to analyze situational variables and make strategic decisions.
Hi, my name is Joanne Yates, and I'm Sloan Distinguished Professor of Management and Deputy Dean in the Sloan School of Management at MIT. After watching this video, you should be able to use a strategic approach in order to communicate effectively. This means that you will be able to analyze your audience, context, and purpose, examine and build your own credibility with the audience, decide on content structure, channel, and style, and evaluate your own and others' messages for sound arguments and effective strategy. As we watch the student presentation, think about the following elements. Purpose. What is the objective of the presentation? Credibility. Do the speakers have credibility with the audience when they start the presentation? If not, how do they establish it? For example, do they build an argument that shows expertise? Content. Does the material support the objective? Is the argument sound? Does the content answer the audience's questions? Structure. Does the organization of the presentation support what the speakers are trying to achieve? Channel. What methods, demos, schematics, animation, text, narration, were used to convey the points, and were they effective? Style. Did the style fit the context? For example, were the speakers projecting a formal or informal style? Were they poised and confident?
This presentation was the last requirement in our class, Product Engineering Processes. The presentation was made in a large auditorium to around 1,200 audience members, ranging from industry members to students to mentors to laymen who didn't know much about engineering processes.
For anyone that uses a walker, many everyday occurrences loom as obstacles. Walkers can't be used on steps in the home or in the community. They don't fit in the narrow aisles of planes, trains, buses, performance venues, or sports stadiums. There's no room for them in the tight quarters of restaurants or most Boston area apartments. I'm Elena Present. This is Kristen Kugetsu, Ragab Kuja, and Rand Hidayah. On behalf of Green Team, we'd like to introduce to you a solution, our product, Walker Prime, a walker that can be transformed into a cane. Through conversations with over 20 users and their representatives, we have established that the market for this product is community ambulators. These are older adults who live independently, drive, but need the added stability of a walker. For instance, one user we spoke to recalled recently going to a fancy restaurant and chose to bring his cane rather than his walker, fearing that there wouldn't be space in the restaurant. Unfortunately, the restaurant had a very large parking garage, and in traveling from his car to the restaurant, he became fatigued and really wished he had his walker. To take a look at how Walker Prime could have improved his situation, we're going to do a demonstration with Rand Hidayah. If she was going to meet a friend for lunch in a restaurant downtown and parked a block away, she could use Walker Prime in walker mode to get to the base of the stairs leading up to the restaurant. She could then, by pressing on the lower locks, convert Walker Prime into a cane mode, and using the cane in one hand and the railing in the other, she could ascend the stairs. The wheels are lifted above the skids so that there's no chance of them touching the ground. She can then, after she's finished with lunch, descend the stairs in the same manner. And to get back to her car, she can change it back to walker mode to walk the extra block. Unfortunately, sometimes there's a narrow footpath leading to a parking area, too narrow for a walker. Again, with Walker Prime, this is no longer an obstacle. To see how this played out with an actual user, we visited a rehabilitation center yesterday and worked with a gentleman who is recovering from hip replacement surgery. He too was able to walk using Walker Prime in walker mode. And as he approached the bottom of the stairs, he was able to compress it, transform it into a cane. and then ascend the stairs using the cane in one hand, and for stability, the railing in the other. Later, he was able to descend the steps in the same fashion. This is what Walker Prime does. If stairs are a thing of your past, Walker Prime is not going to change that. But if what's keeping you from the stairs is your walker, that's a job for Walker Prime.
What was the purpose of the presentation?
The purpose of our presentation was to explain why our product was important. Why would anyone need this kind of transformable walker? To do that, we showed different use cases. For example, we tried to appeal to the audience by talking about narrow spaces in Boston, which people could relate to. We also showed another use case of a user having to walk for a long while in a parking lot. This helped us show the audience that our product is important.
Would the audience have found the presenters credible? What did they do to convince the audience that their arguments were sound?
Our team's sixth presentation, and we had actually had a bad one for our fifth presentation because of the aesthetics of our product and because we were pretty late in putting it all together. So, and our mentors and the staff of 009 had seen this. So we had to reestablish credibility with our final design with our mentors and staff, and we tried to convey that in our presentation. We tested Walker Prime with 2 users at a rehabilitation facility, and we had video with one of the users showing how he was able to use our product pretty easily, climbing up the stairs, climbing down the stairs, and transitioning it from a walker to a cane. This was important because, one, it showed that in reality this is a viable product. It reaffirmed how functional the product was and gave us enough credibility with the audience to show that this would actually be a good product. And actually, I think a lot of our reviews that came in after the presentation did say that we could possibly make this a real product.
Let's continue watching the video.
For Walker Prime, we wanted to focus on 3 things: stability, simplicity, and ergonomic. This was an interesting design challenge because for each of the modes, there were different requirements. For Walker mode, we used similar dimensions to those of other walkers on the market. We had to be able to make sure that you could adjust the height and still have a stable walker. The legs extend from hip height and are angled outward to create lateral stability. In cane mode, we wanted to make sure that you maintain the same handle height in both modes, which also motivated many of our other design decisions. We also looked at other canes on the market and consulted physical therapists to determine what an appropriate cane footprint would be so that it would also fit on a stair. Let's take a look at the intuitive transition from walker to cane mode. We accomplished this by linking the motion in both directions so that it was simple to use. So all the user has to do is grab the 2 locks on either side, disengage them, and bring your hands together into cane mode. Let's take a look at the handles. There are 2 handles in walker mode that become 1 in cane mode. The wave allows the handles to come together nicely and also provides an ergonomic contour for your fingers. Just below the handles are the safety locks. There are 2 different locks, but they are both passive for simplicity. In order to activate these locks, first the user must disengage the upper lock and pull the handles apart. Then the locks on either side engage and lock it into walker mode. Then if the user wanted to make it into a cane again, they would just simply hit either of the 2 locks on either side, push the walker together, and form a cane again. Moving down to the bottom, we have the wheels. We wanted to make sure that the user would be able to use this both indoors and outdoors. So we did some research and found that 5-inch wheels were necessary for outdoor use. We also needed the wheels to clear the ground in cane mode. So we had to make the geometry such that as you collapse the walker into cane mode, the wheels would lift off the ground and above the skids. This brings us to our dual-purpose skids. These skids were designed to be stable in both modes. There is a low-friction surface for sliding in walker mode and a high-friction rubber surface for functionality in cane mode.
How did you decide what material to include in your presentation?
To some extent, the material was stated by the requirements of the class. They said, you need to do a financial analysis. You need to tell us how you made this product. You need to tell us why anyone would ever buy this product or why anyone would ever make this product. So that was the main reason we included what we did. How we arranged it was a little bit more up to us. So we felt, especially given that we had a significant non-technical portion of our audience, it was important to motivate the how with the why and show who can benefit from our product, who could benefit from Walker Prime, before we went into how Walker Prime could be sold or could be made.
What if you were giving a presentation to a group of investors? What content would you add?
The walker market is an attractive one, not only because of its size, but also because of its growth. In the US alone, 500,000 walkers are sold each year. Additionally, this is a rapidly growing market, with the elderly population expected to grow by 3.1% each year for the next 10 years. Looking at the current products on the market, they range from simple standard folding walkers, selling at around $80, to higher-end products, which sell at $400 and over. However, none of these products have the maneuverability of a cane. Walker Prime does. Our suggested retail price is $200. Let's take a look at our costs. We first look at production. We divide our production costs into manufacturing, materials, and assembly costs. And we found that the cost per unit decreases with the production, as expected by the economies of scale. In addition to production costs, we looked into research and development costs, sales, general administrative costs, and distribution expenses. We expect that over the next 5 years, our sales will grow, reaching our market goal of 5,000 walkers per year in 2015. That is a market penetration of 1%. We believe that is reasonable due to the uniqueness of our product's versatility. For those sales, we calculated our net earnings per year over the next 5 years. We found that with an initial investment of $300,000, we can start having a positive cash flow by year 3. That is an internal rate of return of 21% for 5 years. Hence, we proved the feasibility of our goal, helping your loved one be enabled, not hindered by their mobility aid. Walker Prime, the all-access walker. We would like to thank all those that made this project possible. Thank you.
Why did you structure the presentation the way you did?
We had a communications instructor that worked with us. That I had this slide that I'd been working with where I had the 3 vertical stripes of situations in which it would be very difficult to use your walker. And some of them I'd had personal experience with people with walkers trying to get in these situations. And she's like, I think you need to start with that. And so we tried it, and it ended up working really well. So even before the introduction, it's like, here's what we're talking about. Okay, here's our solution to that problem. And it was a natural kind of, we're forming the question in the mind of our audience and then answering the question and showing them not just that we have an answer, but how our answer works. Structuring it that way also helped with the handoff of speakers. I was able to do the introduction, and I had done a lot of the research for this, so I was able to kind of speak to my strengths. Then we moved on to Kristen, who worked more on some of the technical aspects, and then we were able to move on to Raget, who did the financial analysis. And it's actually a very natural thought process as well. All right, so here's why we need this product. Wait, is this product actually useful? We were able to show someone using the product and show how it was able to benefit him in his situation. And then from there you're like, all right, is this product actually manufacturable? How did you design it? We were able to show that. And then as you're like, okay, we have a product that clearly there's a need for this product, and clearly you can make it, but can you make it, in an economical or logical way? And then we were able to show that. So the idea is to kind of stay right in step or half a step ahead of your audience.
What channels of communication were used, and were they effective?
So in terms of audiovisual elements in our presentation, we had the video, which you just saw, of the user using our finalized product in real life. And this was important to show that our product could be used by the target market that we were looking for.
So people over and over were saying, there's no way you're going to have, anyone that's going to need this product isn't going to be able to lift it. And we're like, okay, we will show you that's not the case. And it's one thing to stand up there and say, we took it to the rehabilitation facility yesterday and there was a gentleman there who had no problem using it. And it's another thing to show it.
We also wanted to have a demo of how it worked in real time, just to demo our final product on the day of the product reveal. And we want to design the set to have our two primary use cases, the stairs and the narrow passageway, which we had designed Walker Prime while Kristen was talking about the specific design elements such as the skids, the wheel mounts, the locks, and you can see them in the presentation zoomed in on those rendered images. The PowerPoint presentation sort of gave the audience a sense of how we were going from models to real life and how everything looked at the end and how we were able to achieve everything that we had set out to engineer.
To review, formulating a strategic communication requires that you analyze your audience, the purpose of the communication, and the context in which the communication will occur. Evaluate your credibility with the audience and think about how you are going to build it. Decide on the content, structure, channel, and style that will best help you convey your message. After developing your message, ask yourself, is the strategy effective? Is the argument sound? Your answers to these questions might require you to go back and restructure your communication to make it as effective as possible. Best of luck with your future presentations. If you were to give advice to students doing a similar presentation, what would you tell them?
Have clear goals of what you wish to convey to your audience, because that helps structure your presentation.
For me, it's very important to choose words that you're natural with and say things in a way that comes naturally to you. Trying to say things in a certain way that's not what you're used to go really wrong. So just in case you do forget the exact words you were trying to say, it was very important to say the things that you usually would normally say. Understand why you're saying each thing, and understand why your presentation is flowing the way it is, so that if you forget what you were about to say, you can reason through it and just say it, and don't it's very important to rehearse a lot, but not have it as memorized to the level of word by word and forget why you're saying those words.
I can't agree with that more. AV especially is very temperamental, and it could be that your presentation just disappears halfway through, and yet you still have an audience. And if you know what you're supposed to be telling that audience, you can keep going.
Practice a lot, a lot, a lot.
Can I add a lot?